Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the D2 Talks. My name is Fabio Palvelli. Every week on this channel we publish videos with some of the best artists from the archivist industry. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing. This week I am very excited to have on the show Keely Colcleugh of Kilograph, an archivist company based in California, which work personally I find very interesting. I am a very big fan of the work of Kilograph, especially because of the story behind the company Kilograph. Keely used to be a previous artist for Iron Man, one of my all-time favorite movies. But apart from that, Keely has a very compelling and fascinating story which I really cannot wait to share with you guys. Because of scheduling issues, I had to wait a couple of months to put this video and make it public on YouTube, but now it's finally the moment and we only have one video left, I think, for this series, and then we're gonna take a little break because we need to get cracking on finalizing some of the details related to the D2 conference, which is going to take place 24th and 25th of August in Vienna. We're very excited. I think we only have about 70 tickets left, so if you haven't booked yours yet, just go to our website and get your ticket now. Enough of me blah blah blah. Enjoy this beautiful talk. 2, 1, and we are recording. Okay. Keely, I'm so happy that you took the time for doing this. You know, as I told you in the very beginning, starting talking to you, I was a little bit starstruck because I'm very familiar with the work that you guys do, and you know the fact that we're gonna touch up a little bit later on this. The fact that you worked on Iron Man, you know, kind of like sold me on everything that you have to tell.
Very cool.
So. You know, I'm just really happy that you took the time for doing this, and I want you to provide us a little bit with you know, a bit of your background, how you got started, and how
Sure.
you got to where you are.
Okay. Well, I was an architect, so I went to school for architecture. I worked as an architect for some time, and then I left to do film, exhibition design, and a bunch of other things. And Iron Man, worked as a previs artist, which was very fun. And then I came back to Los Angeles and started Kilograph to see how these different things could come together for architectural communication.
Okay, this is already very interesting for me because I know a lot of people that came from other backgrounds and ended up working in archivists because, you know, very often when I talk about this with other artists, they tell me it's very easy to make the transition into archivist because it's more business focused. So, you know, it's a little bit easier to start a business. When if you work as an artist, it's a little bit harder because, you know, it's arty. It's, you know, very confusing to me because when I talk to people that do archivists, they say, no, there is no money because it's art.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I wanted to ask you, how did you go from architecture into movie making?
Right. That's a great question. A large part of what we did when I was in school was looking at film for inspiration. And you learn about how shots are composed, how the set might affect the story. Our school at the time that I went to McGill was very focused on certain types of filmmaking, and that definitely lent itself to how we did our projects. So we were all really engaged with moving pictures and scenography, and so it was sort of natural progression. I knew a few other people that went into set design and production design from architecture in the sort of 90s, the early 90s. And it was also a bit of a recession time in school when we got out, and a lot of people were looking to other professions, and that was one of the big ones.
Okay, I see. And you are completely self-taught?
As an architect?
As an artist?
Oh, I see. Yeah, very much so. I mean, I have an architectural background, and when I went into film, it was, you know, I wanted to be a production designer or a cinematographer. It was my big dream, There weren't very many role models for me, particularly as a cinematographer coming out of school. And then there was the visa, which is very hard. I'm Canadian, and obviously Hollywood, Los Angeles is where you go to do this. So I needed to come and find a job with my degree, which was architecture, and try to learn at night or at other times the software. Because it was digital set design, was just starting in like 2004, 2005. So I would go in at night and learn Softimage at that time and try and teach myself. And then my coworkers, there was a great group of people who were very helpful, taught me a lot about 3D modeling. But that was for cinematography and animation. It wasn't for visualization. That came much later. And I was taught on the job by my colleagues at Jean Nouvel. They were really helpful. And again, it was a certain style of visualization. But I learned on the job, yeah.
Okay, this is all very interesting to me. And so basically, okay, there was this phase of your life where you worked in architecture, and then you kind of learned 3D skills that helped you going into cinematography.
Right.
And then you made the switch back to architecture visualization, if I'm correct, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And why did you make then that choice to go back to architecture?
Well, it's a great question. It wasn't a deliberate choice. I had started dating someone who's now my husband, and he said, "You want to come to Paris?" Because he had a job, and I thought, oh, well, I've got to stay here, and I've got this thing going on with film. And then I thought, oh, what the heck, I can maybe get a job in Paris doing film. And I went to Paris, and I started working at a place called Booth Company. They're animation. They did City of Lost Children and Delicatessen and some movies like that, and they needed a producer. So I thought, I'll stay in film. I'll do producing. And it was not what I had hoped it would be. It was not as creative, being a producer. So I had the choice to go back and do what I had been doing, which is animation for that company, and keep doing visual effects. Or I had friends who were architects at Jean Nouvel's, and they said, we started this department where it's like computer visualization, montage for architecture. And I thought, that sounds all right. I was also more in the center of Paris. The other one was way outside, and I thought, oh, let's try it. And I loved it. I'd never heard of it. I'd never tried it. It was great. I thought I was this big fancy animator, and I realized I knew nothing. I went there, and it was so technical and but yet so creative, and it gave me so much respect for visualization that I still have. It's a very special industry. Not a lot of people know about it.
But I remember now I study architecture relatively late in comparison to other people my age, because before going into architecture I used to be a cook, a chef.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
I worked even with big names, I was in the restaurant of Jamie Oliver. This is where I actually wanted to study architecture. But I started in 2006 and I finished in 2009, so that was already relatively late in comparison to, all the people that have been doing this for much, much longer than I have. But I remember clearly the style of images that were produced for Jean Nouvel. They were sort of I want to say pop in a way. It wasn't really hyper realistic. It was really about making visual statements.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of the light, and nothing could be too realistic because that wasn't the style of the studio. It had to be like a proposition. This is an idea, a picture of an idea. And so that's already, you're learning the software, just learning what glass can do, what light can do. And you're having to push through to abstraction at a really early stage of development. So you're just learning how Max works, how V-Ray might work, and you have to push through to getting enough control that you can make these images. Because it can go pretty badly, if you don't know how to use something and you're trying to make abstraction, it can look very bad. So it's a struggle, definitely.
No, I know, and it's actually, you know, I'm gonna go on a limb there and say that to me it's even harder to make that kind of imagery, because you really need to rely on your sense of taste and composition and understanding of color. Photorealistic, in a way, it's automated, you know? Of course, that doesn't mean that you can produce easily a nice looking image, but you can produce easily a realistic image. If you do an image that that is meant to create an impact and transmit an idea and a feeling and an emotion, that's where the real skills come out. You know what I mean?
100%. That's when it functions at its best. It's communicating a vision. It's not taking a picture of something. Although there's an argument to be made, and that's another story, for kind of, I'd say, 3D staging and excellent composition, and when it becomes photography, and you're really designing. I think that's a whole other skill set. It's almost a different profession, but it's still 3D visualization.
You know, I was very lucky in 2006 to have watched Libius Woods in a lecture in London.
That's awesome.
And he was introducing this idea of like creating architecture, basing yourself on a visual idea, which is an image. So basically your building develops on an image that you have in your head. So, you know, the design starts like that. And when I was teaching 3D to my students, I used that kind of approach to make 3D models.
Huh.
And,
that's awesome.
You know, I can relate to what you just said, because, you know, staging, it's extremely important.
It is. It definitely is.
You pick a point of focus, you have this idea and you develop from that idea. And I don't know, it's funny that you're mentioning this, because until now nobody has said that, you know.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a large field. There's many ways to accomplish.
How then did you decide to start your company? Because, I mean, now you have a proper big agency. How many people are you?
We're 27 right now.
Okay, so this is already a large office. And how did you get the idea?
Well, I went back to my old company in LA when we went back to Los Angeles, and we talked about doing architecture. And this is a visual effects company. And we started to do a couple projects, and it just wasn't, I think it wasn't the right, perhaps, fit. It was not enough, there wasn't enough visual effects at that time that was desired in architectural visualization. There wasn't really a lot of work in animation, and primarily it was an animation studio. So I had the idea to try and do a couple things on my own. Initially, I worked with friends from France, from Jean Nouvel's office. If it was a big project, we would work together overseas, and it was challenging in that time. Communication wasn't as easy, but Skype, I think, wasn't used that much. But we did like one or two projects, and then I just started doing it on my own. I was loving it. It was a real kind of high from being with a client and feeling part of the process and that you're really helping. And that went on for a while, and then just kind of grew from there.
I think that what you just said is for many actually a problem, you know, dealing with clients and getting a high from dealing with clients, you know.
I love it. I love that interaction. I love working with clients. I didn't ever think I would, but it just works. I enjoy the collaboration.
Is it something that you felt like inside that you could do, or did it come by doing?
I don't think I was super conscious of it, but having a lot of different experiences, working with sometimes some challenging directors or challenging creatives gives you kind of a patience and a skill at looking through to what the problem is that you can solve in almost every situation. So there's always something that you can help with, and it's just listening for when is the right time to sort of jump in. And I think just years of that in different situations made it easier. So I don't think I consciously thought about it. It just seemed like that's what I should do.
Sometimes it's probably the best attitude.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't solve the problem, and as long as you tried the best you could, it seems like a success. So,
how long did it take you to go from this, liquid freelancing kind of I'm doing it, but I'm not really sure what I'm doing, to say, okay, now we have a company and the company's running and I have dependencies and so on and so forth?
That's a really good question. So we had, I think we had like one or two people that were helping on small things at first. And then we had an opportunity, which I think I can talk about it now, but it was working for Apple. And they were developing their mapping app, so the Apple Maps. And a local company that made maps needed a 3D person who could help with some animation and some renderings of cities. And through a friend, we got in touch. And they, it was a very big contract, and they needed a team. And so quickly we found a couple other people who were architecture students who just graduated, and we rented an office space so we could have meetings. And that project went on for almost a year. And it was very exciting. So that gave us the initial seed money to rent an office and to have a team. And around that time, I think our work was starting to come out a little bit. So we just started getting more projects. So I would say about 2 years of kind of freelance, or maybe 1 year even. And then we just grew on the luck of that contract. So I use Google Maps, by the way. I don't think Apple.
It's you're very humble. You say the luck, but I'm very pragmatic when it comes to these things, and I do like to use the expression, the luck is an opportunity that meets preparation. And the more you throw stuff at the wall, the more chances you have that something is going to stick.
Yes.
So I think this is a great attitude, especially if you want to do your own thing. Mm-hmm. And I feel that very often, especially the youngest people that are going into the business, they rely solely on the fact that they make architectural images and they expect somebody to pay for that, which in a way it should be like this, but it's not anymore, because architectural images have become a commodity almost.
Yeah, I think it's the service, it's the partnership, the creative partnership, and helping someone navigate communication. It comes down to that. How do you talk about your work? How do you show your work? We have so many tools now, right? We have websites, VR, AR, animation, branding. It's all the same thing. And so helping someone with that is important.
Yes, and I really hope that people will pay attention to what you just said, because it's it's something that I try to say over and over and over. You touched up a little bit on this VR thing. This was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. You guys seems to be very active in terms of research and development. I've seen a lot of posts and things that you guys have discussed on your social media about virtual reality, augmented reality. Can you expand a little bit on that topic?
Yeah, certainly. For us, it's a very, very important part of what we do. It's really, I think, the future of architectural communication. We're really excited about things that are happening in related industries and how they're adopting the technology, the struggles that some industries are having that we don't have, which is really interesting. And when you think about architectural visualization in terms of communication design, it's the perfect way to show someone a spatial experience, right? You don't need a storyline that you're adding on top of an animation. You are the story. You're in the center of the space. And getting a chance to, like we went to South by Southwest this year, and getting a chance to hear some of the really incredible work that people like, you know, the Void creators are doing, or what do they call it again? Wolf. Oh my God, I have to remember the name. Meow Wolf. They're doing some really incredible stuff with mixed reality. And what they say is that they are funhouse designers, and they're haunted house designers. And when you think about what we do, right, we're taking a space and we're making this incredible experience, whether it's an image or an animation. And to be able to move through the 2D plane and into a full experience, it's just like really exuberant. I mean, it takes everything that we do and spatializes it. And we're just super, super excited by this and the potential of it. So we know we can't do this without an engineer. And so we have a wonderful, wonderful engineer in-house who keeps us grounded and is able to build tools. We recently did a multiplayer tool that's very cool. And then we have a ever-expanding team of artists. And it's kind of crazy how creative people, when they come together around a medium like virtual reality, what they can make, and how excited people get. Like, I don't think in the 10 years that we've been doing this, I've ever seen a reaction from our clients like I have when we put a headset on them and put them into one of the spaces that we've made and they walk around. We've had people take off a headset and say, "You changed my life." It's just, you know, it's kind of an awesome thing. I can't overstate how important it is for everybody to be working in this way. I know there's this, you know, we compose images and we want control sometimes, and that's one part of it, right? But if you really care about communicating what a space is, and giving someone an experience, there's nothing like it.
I totally agree. The only thing is that, you know, now, for instance, one of the things that come to my head is Rem Koolhaas, about, I don't know, 15 years ago. He said something like, you know, a project can only be successful 65% or something like this, you know, that there is a percentage that you simply don't want to show your client because, you know.
Yeah.
And I think about this because, you know, in a way, visualization is, you know, the basically translation of this kind of thinking. You know, you curate the way you present a project. But now that tools like augmented reality or virtual reality or immersive architecture give you the chance to experience things really to the smallest detail, don't you think that this is going to be, in a way, something that needs to be curated somehow?
I don't see how you can. I think if you look to the future and you look how architecture is developing, architecture will be created in 360 degrees. So it's unavoidable. I think there was this distance that you got even from the beginning of architecture where you had plans only and orthographic drawings. And the minute perspective drawing came out, it was the end of architecture. So it's been happening since the beginning of creation, this need to distance yourself from your product. But I think there are other ways that you can you know, communicate important aspects of your work. Perhaps you don't engage people until a certain stage of development, but I think it's only going to improve architecture. Our job is to communicate the most important parts of a project. So we might propose a 360 tour, but like leave out the bathroom, or leave out the parking garage. It doesn't have to be, the worst thing you can do is leave someone alone in a space with nothing to draw them through. And that's where our work comes in. How do we give someone a meaningful experience of the project when they have complete freedom? And if you don't challenge yourself with those questions, I think you never progress what you do.
It's it's interesting that you're saying this, because I was having one of my speculative moments a while ago where I was thinking, but now we got virtual reality, we should make better buildings.
Right?
Like,
right. There's no excuse then.
Exactly.
Like, up the ante. If it comes from us, amazing. Architectural visualization, we're improving CGI technology, we're improving architecture. I mean, we might as well just take over the world.
No, but this is the thing. The only thing is that, as you probably know better than me, architecture is one of those industries that follow the latest, in a way, when it comes to, how do you want to put it? Like innovation. It's not completely right to say innovation, but I don't know if you understand what I mean. Like, that the adaptation of certain technology comes always later in architecture. And I fear that a lot of people are kind of missing out. I see a lot of designers doing beautiful things in VR, painting with like tilt brush and so on. And architects are still making plans. And, they come to us with like plans and sections and say, we have no 3D model, make a rendering.
No, I mean, I think you just walk inside any good school of architecture and see what the students are doing. Like what interests them. So SciArc is just down the street here, and they're producing, I mean, they've always produced some pretty cutting edge work, right? Yeah. Like LA is sort of the final frontier for that in architecture. And they're doing the most incredible stuff. I mean, they're just grabbing robots, augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D, printing, all kinds of things, installation, projection mapping, and they're being so like exuberant with their ideas. And they're the next generation of architects. So I think that profession is changing. And we're just, we're at the beginning of that change. Our visualization's always moved a bit further ahead. It's been a bit more free to innovate. And I think what we do is part of what's going to become, the norm.
In a way, it kind of makes me a little bit sad, because I wish I was born later. And I did all that stuff myself.
Right? Yeah, but I think it's pretty cool that we're, a generation, or I am, and probably a bit older than you are, but we're a generation that saw, the rotary dial phones, absolutely no use of computers, all the way through to what we're experiencing now. And we talk about edge computing and 5D networks and what that's going to do in a very short period of time to our lives that no one's really talking about, and how that's going to just completely free up the ability for us to be creative all the time. We deal with these technical hurdles in what we do as visualization artists. We'll have a lot of those barriers removed, and it will go back to kind of pure creativity and communication. And then I think that idea that what we produce as a commodity will be gone, because it will just be about ideas. So I think it's kind of a cool time to be alive. You've seen this full progression, and you can really appreciate it.
I'm getting a very weird feeling talking to you, because, in a good way. Sorry, don't let me get ahead of myself. In a way, all the people that I've interviewed, they're either the managing directors or like they're very high up in the hierarchy in the office where they work. But talking to you, it feels like you're very in touch with the technology and with the production aspect of the work that you guys do. Are you personally involved in production?
I mean, to some extent, not really these days, no. I mean, there will be the odd night when I'll go in and open up someone's file and mess with it, and everyone just gets mad. But I mean, I'm extremely interested in it. So, I don't think I'll ever not be interested in the technical aspect of what we do. But in order to keep the office running, I kind of can't, for a lot of reasons,
Yeah.
Morale, like cleanliness of files, but I'm part of the discussions, definitely.
Can I ask you a little bit about your process in-house, basically
Yep.
when a project comes in, and how does this develop?
Sure. I mean, there's so many different things that we do. We like to have a conversation about what the need is. Sometimes it's pure production. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you get cameras, you get a model you need to produce, but that's less and less. More these days, we'll have a client that comes with a property or a problem that they're trying to figure out. So we'll decide what team would be the best fit, and often we'll provide different options of routes that they can take. So this is one option based on a solution, a second one, and maybe a third one. And that way they're able to really get a sense of which perhaps path is best for them. And then we follow up the conversation once they've decided on an option, and we'll build out a timeline, assign the team. It could be, a website branding project that has an animation component. It could just be an animation and a series of illustrations. These days, the illustration work we're doing is a lot more kind of narrative driven, so people will want to have certain things happening in the space. And so then there's a kind of organizational aspect to that, getting actors and all that. But it starts with a conversation about what's the best way forward. And that's increased over the past, I'd say 2 years. It's gone more and more to this place where we have a long meeting. They might think they want one thing, and then once you really talk about it, it could be something else. It would probably be something that gets them to their market faster, because speed is sort of very important to everyone, something that doesn't change. So what's the best way to get you out there, Maybe all you need is a splash page with like a crazy image, or, maybe you need the full deal. It depends.
And then it all comes down to the ability of communicating that to the client and to...
An expectation, that's like a huge deal. We realized a few years ago we needed help with that, because, artists can be like incredibly good at what they do, but they might not want to talk to the client all the time. Not every artist does. So we have producers, we call them producers, because they do more than just talk to the client, and they understand what we do, and they can set up what the expectation is. Like, hey, you're going to get this file, and everything's going to be white, but don't freak out. That's normal, and this is why it looks like that. And so they can kind of, oh, okay, or so we don't just send off work to be like, here's our progress. It's like, okay, what you're getting is this, and this is why, this is what's coming next, and then people feel comfortable, It's like the same as VR. You don't leave someone in the middle of a room with nothing to do. You can't just give someone a PDF. They're like, I don't know, what is it? So that's a big part of it.
This is so interesting. With some of my clients, we're trying to produce 85% finished images and work with them, with clients, because we have discovered that it reduces the amount of error in terms of getting feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And we're actually able to receive better feedback from clients by producing images that are more complete.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, one of the downsides is that when you get something wrong, that can happen, you're throwing a project away. Mm-hmm. So, it's, but I just wanted to say it because it's very interesting to me that you have a person that guides clients through the process of understanding the type of work that you do. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that we all work with now who are not designers. They're not architects. They're not visual people. And we use kind of jargon. We use these terms like, clay rendering or texture. People don't know what that is. or even lighting, people will be like, "What? It's like a lamp?" Right? And so you need to be able to talk in a way that people understand. And otherwise, again, it's a product, right? It's not a service.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a product. It's not a service.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask you, one of the things that come up all the time in discussions online and, it's all, very often it's about the self-development as both artists and business people, and eventually finding the good relationship between the two. Now, it seems like you guys have it quite figured out, but I would like to hear also your opinion. How do you develop on both sides and still keep yourself interested in the profession?
In the profession, in terms of the creative aspect?
Yes, in the creative aspect, exactly. Because a lot of artists that I talk to, they tell me all the time, I don't care about the business, I just want to make art. And funny enough, that's not a good thing. It's not good enough. You cannot just do art and be on your own. You should then rely on somebody that takes care of the business aspect for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there are different kinds of artists. I think there are some artists who do prefer to be lost in their art and immersed in their art, and they are more comfortable in an environment where they can just create. And that's always been that way. And then there are artists that are interested in how their work is perceived, in how it works as a communication device, and they learn how to talk about it, and how to, like you said, you experience the 85% complete rendering and then needing to go back. Well, the more that happens, the more you think about, well, how can I stop that from happening? Or maybe not that situation, but what could I do to kind of reduce my pain, and to keep my creative space? And it's about learning how to work with people. So over time, you just learn that if you need to do work a certain way, you need to be able to manage who you're doing work for in a way. And on the business side, you want to just keep the lights on. I think we're not business people. I'm not a business person. I've had to learn it all, and it's been very hard to learn the financial structure and everything else. But that's just a very small part. If you don't care about what you're doing and you're not interested in the creative aspect, you might have a great business, but you won't have any clients because it's not authentic. If you get into something just for profit, I think in a creative field, it's not. I don't think it's ever going to be successful, truly successful. And I don't know about my colleagues, but we didn't start this for money, most of us. We started it for a love of architecture, a love of art, a love of communication. And that comes through when we talk to our clients. So it's all together, it's all wrapped up. And then, of course, you have a studio, you have artists that you care about and you want to nurture. You want them to have the best machines. You want them to have the best render farm. And you need to support that with profit. So it's a big cycle, it feeds itself.
Yeah, exactly. I think you put it out perfectly, because the idea is not to have a focus on money and to think, oh my God, I need to make more and more and more. Because actually, I don't think that is possible doing the job that we do. I mean, of course, you can build a very big company and have it, very successful and create something huge. But I don't think that, doing this job, you can get that rich that you say, okay, it's fantastic. And I've been to a lot of conferences, and this translates also into VFX and, all the industries where you do something creative. I think that if you do this, you're moved by your passion, your love for what you do, for the craft of it. But at the same time, what you have to understand is that you need to have money to keep the lights on.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly.
I want to ask you one more question because, believe it or not, for me, time has been flying by. We're already 38 minutes in.
Okay, that's amazing.
These are supposed to be only 30 minutes, but I've given up on the idea. I do them mainly for myself because statistics say that people only watch like 30 minutes.
Okay.
But I'm the only one that enjoys the hell of them. Say that, you know, you meet yourself, I want to say 10 years younger.
Okay, yeah.
What are you gonna tell that person? You know, which kind of career advice would you give that person?
That's a very difficult question. I don't know if it would be meeting me, because I've always just kind of gone this way. And I probably, if you would have told me something, I would have done the opposite. But any person, I think, who's young, I would say specifically female, in a field that might be somewhat, you know, tech-focused, creative tech, I would say to find a mentor pretty quickly and look at someone who you admire and contact them and find out, you know, what you can do. Because I definitely went through some difficult times not having someone to follow or a path to follow. And there's a lot of maybe time wasted doubting whether you're doing something right. And a lot of that would have been taken away by just having a conversation with someone. I met Sam Slicer from Flood Slicer at a conference a long time ago. And she was amazing. We've been in touch to this day. We email a lot. And I would say she's definitely a mentor to me. And she, you know, she built this incredible company. At the same time, she was raised in a small family, and she's always been an artist to the extent that she retired and just focused on her art completely, and is the happiest person I've ever met. And it was just so nice to have that person to talk to, because there aren't a lot of us, right, who do this, specifically who are women. And so I think finding a role model and sort of having honest discussions about, you know, how to do this and is this right, and et cetera, is really, really helpful. Asking for help and guidance, I think, it's not weakness. It's going to put you ahead.
It's strength, of course. You know, you are a stronger person when you look for help.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of our big things here in the studio. It's kind of, you can't have a culture of accountability if you don't know how to ask for help. So somebody might need help on a project, but they don't ask for it, and they miss a deadline. That's not, you know, it's not helping the culture of the office. Whereas at the beginning, if you say, hey, this is too much, this job I can't do on my own, we need this help. Okay, we'll get it done together. Yeah, it's an important thing to learn.
Okay, listen. This has been beautiful. You know, I don't want to steal any more of your time. We're already 42 minutes in. I was just, you know, hanging on my chair listening to you. Keely, it's you know, it's been a pleasure. I want to thank you so much for doing this. I want to ask you, are you going to be at any events this year somewhere that, you know, I could hopefully meet you?
Yeah, well, we have some of our guys are going to come to D2.
Oh, really? Okay.
Great. And then I'm going to be in Venice at the end of May.
For the EMARC?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm speaking at that with Jackson.
Oh, you're talking there. You're speaking there. Okay. Okay. That's great. Maybe I'll try to come. I can't promise, but I'll do my best.
Cool. And then in Mexico at Render, I'm going down with one of our art directors, and so I'm really excited to do that, to meet everyone there.
That might be a little bit difficult for me.
Yeah.
But, you know, well, maybe I'll take my wife for a second honeymoon there.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot again. And I'm going to stop the recording now. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to thank you again whilst we are done with once we're done with this. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.